Joining Carl this week is Bernadette Heier, managing editor at Food on Demand, as they discuss the huge takeover of Olo, a new kind of vending machine at LAX, and unpacking why AEO is now more important than SEO. That's all ahead on this week's Digital Restaurant.
Good morning, we're back. The Digital Restaurant had a little break. Yes, we were away for a couple of weeks. July 4th, I guess there just wasn't much news out there, but I come back with great news in the sense that I have Bernadette back with me again, guest hosting on the show. Bernadette, how are you?
Doing great. Thank you for having me back, Carl.
Oh, very pleased to have you back. I was just saying the listening numbers to your last appearance here were pretty impressive. So clearly you've got a fan group out there that's love to listen to your take on everything that's going on. And boy, have we had some stuff happening in this space over the last few weeks. And let's get straight into it, if that's right with you, Bernadette, because this is probably one of the biggest news stories of the year. I mean, in many ways, featured in both of the books, Delivering the Digital Restaurant. Olo has been there all the way through the digitization of this industry, and they've got acquired. What has happened? Tell us.
Yeah, so big news in the restaurant tech space. Olo has been acquired by investment firm Thoma Bravo, I believe, for a $2 billion all cash deal. So just, a little chunk change. But this is big news because Olo is one of the leading platforms for restaurants looking to manage digital ordering, payments, guest data, and a company we're very familiar with at Food on Demand. They work with many of the major brands out there. But this is a big deal because, Olo started about 20 years ago and has continued to build. I believe it went public in 2021, but now under this new deal, it'll be going private again. But why does this matter? I think it really represents the consolidation we keep seeing in the industry. We're seeing a lot of hospitality-focused tech firms being acquired lately. I think about DoorDash bought 7Rooms reservations platform and Symbiosis AI platform. The Access Group has acquired Paytronic. Things like that keep happening. I think it shows that Olo's transactions kind of expected to accelerate its growth plan and strengthen its offerings for over 750 brands. But again, it also shows that we're seeing more consolidation and also just the importance of restaurants being so digital focused and, a digital restaurant like this podcast. And I think investment firms continue to eye that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really thrilled for Noah and his team because
Noah.
it's been a real journey for them all. And I think it's not so much a retreat into private world, it's a reset, right? In the sense that I think this is going to give them the freedom to invest in really what's next without always needing to justify every decision to the public market. So that's going to be helpful. The thing that surprised me, Bernadette, from folks that were reaching out, they were saying, who the heck's this Thoma Bravo company? Right? It's like, where have they come from? No one had heard of them before, but they're not just any private equity firm, right? They're one of the largest tech investors in the world. They've got something like $130 billion in assets. And of course, they specialize in software, mainly, I think, SaaS infrastructure and cybersecurity. But, the whole model is to buy undervalued or underleveraged companies and then help them streamline the ops and then invest in the products and hopefully grow accordingly. So I'm excited to see what this means for them. I think the challenge, as ever, with any organization that supports some of the bigger enterprise restaurant brands out there is that they create and ideate at the pace of their clients. And so therefore, in many ways, because Olo was the leading force in this regard, their own product innovation had to move at the pace of where their clients were moving. So this, I think, is actually quite an exciting shift because no one out there sees the future better than Noah. And you see the stuff that he puts out on LinkedIn right now. He really sees the importance of holistic interdependent technology, something I'm a big exponent of myself. And so I think with the right product focus, the right margin discipline, this could be a real infrastructure platform for hospitality, especially as we see more come around with AI and personalization and the whole omni-channel commerce language that he uses all the time.
How does OpenTable's AI Concierge provide a glimpse of the future?
Yeah, we don't often talk about OpenTable that much, but they launched officially this new thing called AI Concierge, which is a conversational chatbot designed to assist users in choosing restaurants and understanding what to expect before they even arrive at the restaurant. So it's available on both mobile and desktop, and it's built to act I think in their words, they use this term, a helpful in the know friend who's done all the homework. We've all got one of those, right? That knows all the restaurants in town. Well, now OpenTable have got a bot to help, and it kind of lives directly on the restaurant profile page, and it pulls from OpenTable's internal data set, like descriptions, menus, reviews, and it synthesizes all of that together using OpenAI and Perplexity's large language models. And so, what does it really do? I think to them, they said it answers something like 80% of diners' questions, which is a pretty decent amount, from what's on the menu to directions to what kind of vibe to expect when you're at the restaurant. It can even recommend some dishes, assuming that the menu data is up to date, which is a big assumption, right? We know that not all menus out there are always up to date, especially seasonal menus. And I think that's part of the kind of rub here, right? Is that this thing's only going to be as good as the information it's trained on. And their CTO, Sagar Mehta, said garbage in, garbage out. So there's a deeper layer, I think, on all of this. And that is, when you look at OpenTable's research, they found out that over 25% of diners abandon a reservation because they can't find what they need online. And perhaps even more telling is that 17% give up simply because they just don't want to make a call. Diners expect digital tools to do the work now, right? They don't expect for them to have to really work hard for this. They want the digital tools to do everything in the moment. And so OpenTable's clearly listening. The Concierge is more than a bot. It's a kind of window, I think, into how discovery is evolving. And we're shifting from keyword search to conversational discovery. And that's something that's really been happening across many platforms, from Google's AI overviews to OpenAI's operator. And now OpenTable is trying to meet that shift head on. But, there are some important guardrails, some things that kind of come to mind for me here. And that's things like, I don't know whether you or anyone in your family have allergies or particular nutritional concerns, and you've got to think about how that plays into it. Now, as I understand it, the AI today is going to redirect users to check with the restaurant directly, which is probably a smart legal move. I don't know whether the lawyers would have agreed with that, at least in this first iteration. And so it's going to have to be mindful of that piece of it. It's also going to have to work closely with the operators, with the restaurants, to catch inconsistencies. For example, if users keep asking about a dish that's no longer on the menu, it signals that the operator needs to update their data, in the same way that the AI becomes a kind of feedback loop, not just for the diners, but also for the operators too. That's typical digital management. So what does this mean for the restaurants listening to the show? Well, first of all, if you're on OpenTable and your profile isn't up to date, your menus, your hours, your photos, that's going to amplify those weaknesses. So you got to treat this as a new kind of digital front of house merchandising, a way to think that it's always on, it's always talking to your guests before they even arrive. The second thing is that there's potential here, I think, for deeper integration. Imagine the bot not just answering questions, but anticipating needs, reminding you to book your anniversary dinner, right? Or a birthday or something like that. Of course, for customers, it's making decision-making faster, it's making it more intuitive, and hopefully a bit more delightful. So are you going to use it? What do you think? You think this is something that would lean into when you're looking for a restaurant on OpenTable? Would you check it out?
I would. I actually love this, especially when I think about if we have a group of friends going out to eat or for an occasion. These are questions you wonder. And we are in the phase now with AI and these chatbots or assistants that have a conversation with them about what you're thinking about, and it relays to you answers. And so I think this is something people would like. Today's diners are very tech savvy, and oftentimes they want to know exactly what to order or what specific needs that they're going to need or have before they even step foot in the door. So I think this is a good move, and we'll see how it evolves.
Up next, Golden Corral. I love Golden Corral, and especially Dawn over there. She's one of the superstars in this space. They're relaunching their off-premises offshoot with a new tech partner. So what is all the off-premise offshoot, and what's the new tech partner?
Yeah, so Golden Corral, another one of those legacy brands. Last year, it modernized and opened up an off-premises fast casual segment called Homeward Kitchen. And that really had smaller dining rooms, drive-through, pickup areas. But now they've rebranded it as Golden Corral Favorites, just from a branding marketing perspective, but with a new tech partner, Flybuy. And Flybuy's platform uses location tracking to know when a guest is en route, as well as letting staff know when to prepare the orders just in time so food is fresh and hot. But why this matters is this really isn't just about Golden Corral. It reflects the bigger shift in seeing legacy brands update and modernize for the digital guest or these more off-premises models. And that obviously involves your tech stack, but also opening these smaller formats that are more like a Chipotle, or I think about Perkins opened up their griddle and go format. So this is something I'm eyeing and we cover a lot because we're seeing these brands switch up their strategy, but also that comes with a lot of back end work, and not only tech integrations, but also physical. So I think this is kind of reflects a broader move we're seeing in the industry where legacy brands know they have to keep up.
Yeah, I agree. I love what Flybuy have been working on for many years now, and it really reflects this growth in pickup, right? And just the idea of folks are just saying, look, I want to eat from my favorite restaurants, but that delivery fee, the commission that I'm having to pay to the third party, it's getting in the way. And so, you know what? Actually, I'll save myself a little bit and do a pickup. And so therefore, how can we optimize the pickup experience to be something that's just more inviting and certainly optimal in terms of the dish temperature? Well, this is really what they're talking about here, right? To be able to ensure that the capability is so that the food is as fresh as possible. Now, what that means for the kitchen and whether it can handle those peaks and troughs of activity in the moment, I think is a big question as well, right? Does that just push a level of strain into the overall operation? What does this mean for delivery drivers themselves, right? Because they might be going to drop certain things off, or they might be picking up multiple orders from the same restaurant. It clearly seems like this is something specifically for customers and pick up themselves, not for delivery drivers. So are they losing some opportunity on that side? Maybe, but at least they're thinking about how to treat their off-premise customer better. And that's the thing I've always been talking about on the show, is just how do we think about the off-premise channel with the same white cotton gloves as we do for the on-premise channel.
All right. What is AEO and why should every restaurant be aware?
AEO. Well, I'll explain that one to you in a moment if you've not heard of that acronym before, because I think this is one of the most confusing, maybe arguably critical marketing shifts happening right now in the restaurant world. AI-driven search and the new rules of discoverability. For the best part of 2 decades, we've all been told the same thing. You got to optimize for SEO, search engine optimization, right? Use the right keywords, keep your site up to date, and Google is going to reward you with all this visibility, maybe even some conversions. But of course, now what's happening is the whole playbook is being rewritten. And I'm sure you've experienced this yourself, Bernadette, when you're on Google, because last year they launched this thing called AI overviews, which is a feature that is appearing in over 55% of all search results. So it's huge now. And instead of the traditional list of clickable links, Google's AI is now delivering a synthesized answer at the top of every page. And the article that Joe put out here on this one kind of says, like, if someone was to search for what's a good vegan Thai restaurant in Milwaukee, they might get a 3-paragraph blurb from various different websites, maybe with just 1 or 2 links included, if any. And the example I think that was cited was a restaurant that got top billing, but no direct website link. Meanwhile, another business got lumped in despite not serving Thai food at all, just because it was vegan, right? So welcome to the complicated world of answer engine optimization. So AEO, answer engine optimization. And I think this is the new battleground for digital visibility. But this is where it gets trickier. According to SimilarWeb, almost 70% of searches now end without a click. 70% of searches end without a click. So no one's visiting your site. They're reading the AI blurb and then moving on. So that's the first big shift. The second is this surge in how people are using chatbots and generative AI like ChatGPT, and the same kind of quirks are happening. Over the last 18 months alone, news-related searches through ChatGPT have jumped 212%. So if you're a restaurant that's trying to stay visible online, the question becomes, how do I show up in a world where nobody clicks anymore? So a lot of marketers, especially those working with fast-growing brands, are saying, forget Google, go all in on video. And there's a bit of truth in that. You've got TikTok, Reels, YouTube Shorts, they're all commanding consumer attention in a massive way. 41% of TikTok users use TikTok as the search engine. And then you've got 90% of all web content now being video. And so you've got brands like Crumble and Dave's Hot Chicken that are really leaning into video as a way of being able to move from niche concepts to national concepts, and using video as a main means of being able to transport their brand into the eyes and the video watching audience. You've got, who is it, Chili's, and they went viral, the triple dipper platter that helps some of their stores see something like up to 30% of growth year on year. But here's the problem, and the article doesn't really lean into this. Video is fantastic. We record the podcast on video for a reason, right? It helps with the connection, it helps with brand awareness, it helps with storytelling, emotional engagement. But it's not yet a primary input for AI generated search, things that might be used by Google or ChatGPT's answers, right? And while AI models can transcribe your videos, there aren't many being used from a search perspective, right? So in this sense, your video might have some really interesting information about a new LTO or a new item on the menu. If you've just launched that on video and thinking that the AI is going to pick up on that in the search, you're going to be mistaken unless you've got captions and transcripts, the appropriate way of being able to feed this data in to the engine. Video is an additive step, not a replacement. Yeah, structured Q&A style website content is still the primary source for these AI answers. And Michelle Abdo, who's quoted in the article, she's a president of a marketing agency. She's been leaning really hard into this because she says, look, if you want to be found by AI, you need to be writing content that sounds like almost like a Q&A that your customers are actually asking, and answer them clearly. So instead of just saying, we serve vegan Thai dishes, your website should include something like, question, what makes your Thai food vegan? A, we use coconut milk, tofu-based proteins, and avoid fish sauce in our curries. That kind of answer-ready format is what's going to get picked up by these AI models, not necessarily the video clips, not even your most viral Instagram reel, right? That's the reality check here. So if you're relying only on video to drive discovery, you're building an audience, yes, and that's great, and you should keep doing it, but you're not building AI visibility. And those two things are divergent. So embrace video, but channel it strategically. Structure your website content for AI. Think about that Q&A format, and don't make that decision between the two, because they're both really important.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought this up, and I think you really hit it on the nail, the best direction to go with that. Video is important, but you can't forget about your search. And now it's AI search optimization, which is so interesting. And something I hear from my friends in marketing, including our marketing folks at Food on Demand, is the stress they go through with the AI summaries that summarize articles now when you do Google search, or summarize your questions. People aren't scrolling and clicking anymore, and it's no longer about clicks. It's discoverability, as you said. So I think it signals a bigger ecosystem trend where online is how you show up, where you show up, and how you can be discovered is so important for a restaurant. Social media is important, but with the rise of AI, I think that's fascinating advice on how to be found through that. So I would definitely keep note on this if you're a restaurant.
Last up this week, this one really caught my attention. VenHub, who I hadn't heard of before, they're kind of branching into automation in a way that sounds pretty different. What's your take?
Yeah, so this came across my desk and I wrote an article on VenHub, and it's essentially these automated smart stores, kind of like a glorified vending machine, if you will, but much more smart than that. So what these are is they are areas for high convenience spots like airports, transit centers, or underserved neighborhoods. And it allows a 24/7 access to food. This particular model isn't hot food, but say you're going to an airport, this one's live at LAX, you can actually pull up your app, order what you want, and when you're about 10 or 20 feet away, it'll have your order ready for you in a pickup box because of these robotic arms that are preparing your order for you. And so, the whole point is to be able to offer this 24/7 fast grab and go store where you can grab your items quickly. The CEO I spoke to said startup costs are around $250,000 per unit, and he claims that they've already amassed over 300 million in pre-orders. So what he's saying is that because of the small overhead to get these started and how fast you can have them pop up, people are very interested in this, especially for areas like airports where you don't need to go in and speak with anyone or have a traditional sit-down experience. This matters in our industry because I'm seeing this pop up more often. I think about Pizza Forno is an autonomous pizza vending hub machine. Donato's just partnered with Appatronics for a similar model. And these are hot food where VenHub isn't. So I think we're seeing this more often, and even some chains are getting into it. And it's just for a quick pickup. Why not we embrace technology and do it if you're not looking for that sit down experience? So certainly something we're seeing in the robotic space.
Mm. It is interesting how more and more of this proximity sensing capability is coming into all sorts of areas, and it just drives the attention back to this idea of the customer wants what they want and they want it now, right? They don't want to have to wait. And so if you can create a level of capability that allows you to be able to get whatever they're servicing in these kind of vending machines, which I'm guessing are drinks, and in somewhere like LAX where you run into a flight somewhere, the idea of having to wait is a challenge. If you can pay via your phone and you can walk up and get it, that's even more seamless than some of these self-service checkouts, right? Where sometimes you're having to wait behind someone else to be able to get to the checkout, which in itself was a big step forward. But the idea of the fulfillment being done as you arrive, and it's as easy as just picking it up, it's almost a bit like the just walk out capabilities that Amazon were working through. So fascinating stuff. Okay. Well, now that I know LAX, next time I'm flying out of that, I'll have to go and check out one of the VenHubs and maybe provide some kind of live report on that one, Bernadette.
Yes, please do some on-the-ground reporting for me and report back.
There you go. There you go. Good stuff. All right. Well, look, we got through that in super good time. Look at that. We're professionals, aren't we? If you've got any views as to what you think about this week's stories, AEO, is that something you are aware of? Are you going to do something about it? How much are you embracing video? And what about all of this proximity sensing capabilities in your kitchens? Is that something that you're going to follow Golden Corral's lead on? Or maybe even build in one of these AI-enabled vending machines on the outside just to drive some extra revenue. It's all about that these days after all. But listen, until next time, leave your comments below. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you then. Take care.
The Digital Restaurant Podcast is available for you to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Watch us, rate us, and subscribe to The Digital Restaurant on YouTube, and follow along on all our social media digital restaurant channels. Thanks for listening.